Well, good morning, everyone. My name is John Frady. Welcome to our first webinar here uh, for Transformed. We are so glad that you are here with us today. We are so proud and glad to have our own Eddie Esposito here with us in the house. Eddie, welcome
Glad to
to
be.
the welcome to this web seminar. We're so glad that you're here, Eddie. You have. I was looking over your bio, and I've known you for several years. But I was looking over your bio, and I was very impressed and humbled by looking there. You've traveled the world and the country, uh, teaching and coaching people in goal setting and communication skills. And I'm honored. And you've done that through a couple of companies. What companies are those that you've worked with?
One of them was a company I co-founded called Ascentive.
A
And
sense
I
of.
did a lot of connected events, I would say, with a company called BNI, Business Networks International. And the founder was my co-founder in Ascentive, so we had a connection there. And then I just like to do a lot of it privately, so we get invited to go different places and be able to say and do different things. And I was always amazed, and blessed. God blessed me greatly in this way. Was every time I got up, just like I still can't believe that people want to sit out here and listen to what I have to say. It's amazing to me. It still is.
Well, I know you've done well. You've traveled the world. I remember one time you told me that you were teaching in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day, and that's
Yeah,
really impressive
yeah.
and great to hear that as well. Now, you've also over the years you've contributed to several best-selling books in different ways. You've spoken on the radio and TV, different types of interviews in there, and as a consultant. And as I was really impressed as I went down that as a personal chef in the earlier years, you cooked for several of our U.S. presidents.
That's right. I did four and several first ladies,
Wow,
and just different experiences. Again, I was blessed, and it's a whole nother chapter of my life. I have a few significant chapters. In the one prior to this one, I was, I guess, like what you'd call a high flying chef, and I got to see meet some really interesting people and some just amazing stuff. I'll say, the planes and the places, and it was quite incredible.
that's really exciting. When you said that, my first thought was what they have to eat. I wanted to figure, figure that out. But we're so glad that you have you here. We love you and your wife Heather, your three kids. So glad for your involvement in our church and with our Crescent City Christian School as well. We thank you for all that you do for that and on our administrative committee. And for today, we're going to be talking about goal setting. And you were the first person that popped into our heads when we're looking for somebody, an expert in the field. And so I'm going to get off of here, turn it over to you, and we'll have there. If you have questions, I think you can put them in the chat, or there's a poll that's going around that people can answer if you're on the Zoom. If you're on YouTube, you can post questions in the chat there. We'll try to get to some of those as we go on. Eddie, anything you want to say as we're getting ready to get started, or you want to jump right in?
We'll jump right in. The poll is up there. I didn't know if Blake wanted to say something about the poll, or you wanted to say that.
Well, I know that people are there's just questions there. There's a question there. What's the hardest part of setting goals for you? And different people have been answering those. So go ahead if you're on Zoom and be answering that. We'll come back as we get to the end and be showing you the results of that poll as well.
Okay. Well, like you said, I'd like to go ahead and jump right into it because if you've printed out your worksheets or whatever, it looks very lengthy. I would say don't freak out about that. There's a lot of checks and balances in there just to help you create a process. And that's what I want to emphasize first is like to go through these slides in the worksheets real quick so you get an idea what the process is. In fact, research shows that it's to be more successful in goals, it's about mastering the process or the way to get to where you want to go than is actually the end goal in mind. For example, I might have a goal to, play in the NBA, or that might be based on abilities, but two equal people have a goal to play in the NBA or do some kind of athletic event. They both have the same goal, but the one who can master the process of the things that are needed to get to the goal are the ones who will get there. So even though they may fail the first time, so to speak. They're ensuring their success by learning what it takes to do it so they can repeat it over and over. A more tangible way to think about that is people set weight loss goals all the time and they achieve them and then go right back to, the place they were before. Part as they didn't master the parts about becoming a healthier lifestyle, just focused on the end goal and not what it takes to be at that end goal. So that's kind of the idea here. So if I can walk through these slides real quick and in the sheets and help you understand the process that we'll go through to get to it, that would be like the way I'd like to start. And if time permitting, we'll go back and we'll start on some of your goals. So if that sounds okay, then we'll move. And by the way, feel free to ask questions along the way. John will interject with these questions when maybe we have a good spot to do that. And at the very least, it'll be at the end of the first walkthrough of these slides. With that, and of course, it doesn't want to do what I want it to do here. All right, John, my slide is not progressing. Oh, I did. I got it. Sorry. All right. So the first thing is what is a goal? Well, a goal is an idea that's set out there in the future or of a desired result that a person or a group of people envision, plan, and commit to achieve. So it's not something that's tomorrow or next week or something that's a to-do list item. Okay, it's something that's going to take some time and some effort to accomplish. There's some characteristics of a good goal. They are into the future and are milestones to something bigger. And if we relate it back to the transform message from last week on the message handout, this one referred to streamlines energy. So if they're out there and it's something big and we're trying to get to it, we'll be able to focus our energy on getting into one place. Goals are approach oriented. And what that means is they're worded, stated, and done in a fashion that is to be something or become something or get somewhere, do something different, not I'm going to stop doing something or I'm going to lose weight actually is not an approach oriented goal. To become healthier is an approach oriented goal. So you want to state your goals in a way that's a statement of faith. I believe it. I'm going to do it. Those are the kinds of things. So that would relate to your statement of faith. And they're stated as commitments, as I say underneath there. So they'll shape your character. They are a statement of faith and they'll strengthen your resolve. If I'm going around saying, I will be such and such by whenever, okay, I got to kind of step out there. It's going to shape my character. It is a statement of faith. And it's going to straighten my resolve because I've declared it. They have to be important, meaningful, and impactful. If they are those things, those will honor God, and you'll be much more likely to go after them. To really be a good goal, it has to be stretching, and anytime you stretch outside of your comfort zone, or you get that little feeling as you're doing I don't know if that's the right place to be. You don't want to necessarily be in the place of, oh, there's no way I could do that. And that, you really can't. But if it's a stretch, that's the kind of goal we're talking about. And that does require depending on him because I need my support and I have to have my faith that, this is the right thing for to do. And he's going to be there for me to help me get to where he wants me to go. And they're time managed. What I mean by time managed, it's not necessarily a dictation of the, by every certain individual date. It's more about, I have a big overarching goal in my strategies. So by the end of, say 60 days, I want to be here and for 90 days be there. So there's management in the goal, or in the big overall goal to get to where you want to go, which we'll describe a little bit later. But that also has the effect of streamlining your energy. So some tips for success. If you can, as inspirational as you can make the goal for yourself. So even if it's something that's, I don't know, it's kind of hard to get inspirational sometimes about becoming debt-free or whatever, but if you can fashion it in a way when you finish writing it or going after it, that emphasizes what it's going to be like when you're done. You can craft your goal in a more inspirational way. That's going to say, I'll go after that. And then you can remind yourself every day why you're doing it. The most successful goal, as I was describing earlier, the most successful way to get to goals and differentiator is to make sure you're emphasizing mastering the process more than the end result. Okay. So if we can learn all the steps or what it's going to take to be where we are, then the end result might be fleeting at some point, but then it'll get closer as you start mastering the process that you can repeat over and over. And we'll delve into that a little bit as we go along here. Manageable time bites. So even though you may have a year-long goal, or I'll give you an example. I want to graduate college. Well, you have to take the first classes first. So your time bite would be, I'm going to manage my way to that goal by at the end of 90 days, I'll be here, or in 60 days, or whatever the appropriate time bite is. And the reason for that is if you set an annual goal, then what can happen is you're going along the way and you start checking in on yourself or whatever. And then you get to a point where, man, I am so far behind, you abandon the goal. So if they're in manageable time bites, then you can manage that process. And if you're going wrong, you can correct. And if you're going right, you can keep going. So manageable time bites is very important. Include the support needed to be successful. At the end, one of the last pieces of this process is to identify what are the things that get in your way. How do you get in your way? And what other things could come up, and try to build in allowances for that or ways to deal with them. And who can, and the people that can help you get there. So having the support needed to be successful. You don't want to do it. We got to rely on God, and you don't want to do anything that's going to be meaningful, impactful, and not have guidance or support around you. The humankind. Specific and related to a bigger picture. So any goal should be about achieving something big, or going to the next level of you. Limit the number of goals. So I don't have 10 goals going on at one time. If the goals are meaningful and impactful, the things you have to do to get to something meaningful and impactful are pretty consuming. So the number of serious goals that you can be working on is going to be very limited. 1, 2, maybe 3, depends upon the extent of what it is that the big overarching goal is. And I'm talking about overarching goals there. Share them out loud with others you look up to. If you make that declaration, I can say this, if I make a declaration to Pastor Dennis, I'm doing it. Okay. Just no two ways about it. He's got no authority over me. He's got no real say, or, and I can't have a penalty, but he means enough to me that if I say that I'm going to do it, I'm going to go do it. Okay. And so if you can share your goals and declare it with somebody that you would not fail for, that's going to help you. And they have to be stretching enough that you actually grow, but yet still remain really achievable. Like I said, I can set a goal to dunk a basketball. And, if I was to stand up, I got to, face and body that's made for radio, sit down radio shows. It's not made for jumping in the NBA. That's not really going to be achievable for me. So making sure that whatever you set is in fact going to be achievable, but is going to stretch enough that you have to learn new things and do new things to actually achieve them. So those would be some tips for success. Seems like a lot, but it's not really. So then we would say, what is an important goal for you? What are some of the things that you have in mind? And when we come back through, we're going to start writing some of these things down. So now that I know what the characteristics are, and I know some things that need to go into it, and got an idea of what I'm thinking is a goal for me, then I'm going to start asking myself these questions. So when I reach the goal, how will I be thinking differently? When I reach the goal, how will I be feeling? What emotions are attached to that? What are the new behaviors I will have reached as, when I've reached the goal, or as I'm going to get to the goal? What are my new behaviors? And then what's the learning involved in getting there? These are real, they call these awareness questions. Because if it's going to be a meaningful, impactful goal that's going to change things or bring you to the next level of you or whatever it is you're doing, these questions are very significant, because if the goal you set doesn't tick these boxes, well, no, I won't be thinking anything differently, won't be doing anything differently. Well, and not much of a goal at that point. It's just a to-do item. So these are awareness questions to say, okay, no, this this is a worthwhile thing that I'm planning for here. And then, of course, I doubled the slides. Sorry about that. Considering your answers to the previous question, then we can go back to the message from last week. Or start going back to the message last week. So how is this goal meaningful? Is it meaningful? Is it going to impact the areas? How is it impactful? How is it inspirational? How does it honor God? How is it motivated by love? And I would suggest if you have a goal that's going to be important, you'll be able to answer these questions, because it's going to have impact in your life, on others' lives, in your financial situation, which is going to affect other people. Like, really look for the deeper meaning. And when you discover what that deeper meaning is, you're much more likely to keep chasing it, to go after it. Now, there's a difference between the goals. It's called distal and proximal. I don't make these names up. Okay. Distal and proximal goals. So a good example of a distal goal would be, hey, I want to graduate college. The proximal goal, the more, or the bite-sized chunks that I was talking about. I got to take this class, or I got to complete this semester to get to the next semester. And eventually my 4-year goal was to become, a college graduate. So that's the difference between them. But it always starts with the distal one first. And when you do a distal goal, the distal goal is, hey, I want to be healthy, or I want to become financially free, or I want to accomplish something else in my life, or I want to, looking on the board here with John's things up here, I want to change, I want to work into a positive mindset. Okay. Those are out there, and they're going to take some steps to get to. So those would be your distal goals. And if you can find a way to make that encompass in like a little slogan for your distal goal, like new year, new me, or something quick like that, that will give you an idea of what you're going after, and you can have that stuck up all over your house. Matter of fact, a lot of the successful businesses that I've gone to have had those things piped up, and I have to ask what they are, and then they're quite willing to tell me, and I've seen it in some individuals too, vision boards, those kinds of things. But you can make a slogan or a tagline, or relate to an inspirational quote as it relates to your distal goal. That's going to set the course for you to go, and then we can get to the next thing. And make sure it's approach oriented. Anything you say or put up there is, that you're either going to do something, be something. It's forward facing. It's out in the future. It's not stopping doing something or looking back at anything, and it's inspiring for you. So your inspiring message, quote, simple phrase will be a way to look at or arrange your distal goal. For your proximal goals, now this is where it comes in. So in order for me to get to those overarching big picture goals, being more healthy, being financially free, some of those, working on my mindset, now I'm getting into the manageable bites. And again, I'll go back to, we have to be approach oriented. I'm going to be something, do something, accomplish something, which is that statement of faith. I am going to keep my time bites on these manageable. Some might be 90 days appropriate, some might be 6 week appropriate. And they'll have specific, and they have, the proximal goal is specific and has milestones to something bigger. So these managed bites are relevant to get me to where I want to go, and they're going to be milestones. So when I get to the first one, then I can move to the next one, into the next one, sort of like a roadmap. I want to go to Atlanta. I'm going to go to Mobile first, cut up to Birmingham. I'm making my path along the way. So I have that vision of being in Atlanta, but I got to go through all of these milestones to get there. It's just another way of looking at your proximal goals. They're inspirational. It's going to mean something to me or to my company, even if you were doing a company goal. When we, as I accomplish this one, to get to the next one. Okay, an inspirational piece is often overlooked, and it's a saboteur for success, because it's positively oriented as opposed to stick oriented, where I will fail if I don't do this kind of thing. All right, so now it's time for some strategies. I've got my proximal goal. How many different ways are there to get there? So for example, I want to be at a certain weight, if I use the weight loss example, by um, Easter. Okay. Well, how many ways are there for me to get there? There's certainly diet, exercise, mindset. Well, those are my different paths, but they may have some that are not appropriate for me, vegan eating, or something that's going to carry me outside of my medical plan, whatever. So the idea is there are many paths. Which ones suit you best? And those now are your strategies about how you're going to get to that goal. And so when I have my strategies, and let's say it's diet, exercise, mindset, then I can start saying, this week, I'm going to do this as it relates to diet. I'm going to clean out my pantry. I'm going to research and develop the list of foods of what my body and medical conditions need. And I'm going to start assembling menu options. That might be my actions for this week, but they're related to that little strategy that's going to get me to my other goal. And then, is there anything that needs to happen first? I might need to do something before I can even implement the other two strategies. So that would become a factor in here as well. And then what support do you need to be successful? Like what gremlins pop up for you? I used to do a workshop called Goals and Gremlins, because it's invariable. Whenever there's a goal, it's a gremlin out there. Something shows up that is a battle. Satan likes to show up in his own way. And so how can I fight it off? And you can start asking questions. Well, it'd be helpful if I had, or I did, or somebody, or something like that. I need to get, sometimes you need a piece of equipment to accomplish what you want to have, or, some kind of system. I need to set reminders. That's kind of one of the primary things, is to be prodded some kind of way. And then I think the best support group would be the Transformer Life group, and the members in it that you would trust to be your buddy in this, or to provide healthy accountability. We can't give them a job, because that's not their job to hold you accountable. But they'll be supportive yet not buy in, or can help you fight off that gremlin when it pops up. So Transform a Life group is a good place for that, because even if the members may not necessarily check that box for you, they have access to a lot of people that do. And whether it be the pastors here at the church, or some of the other elders, leaders, there's somebody out there that can do that, and that connection is very important. And that will be the end of that slow show, which I have to reset up. So with that in mind, John, do we have any questions hanging around out there?
Yeah, let me.
As I reset the show, because I just messed it up. As I said, we're going to go back through the process here. So you get your worksheets out when you get ready for that.
Okay, Eddie, yes, we do have some questions. And as we're working through that, let me just get us up to, let me share with you, first of all, where we are with our poll right now. We had 16 votes. And what's the hardest part of setting goals for you? One of them said, actually 3 said, I don't know where to start. 6 said, fear that I will fail even if I try. That's the highest answer. 1 is, I don't have time to set goals. Actually, 2 people said that. 1, it says, I have many dreams. So they have many dreams. And so they're trying to figure out, I guess they're trying to figure out between those. And 1 person said, I don't like to think ahead. And it's interesting. You were telling me a story about, when I'm looking for these other questions, you were telling me a story earlier about a man who said he didn't like to set goals.
Yeah, I'll relate that story real quick while you're looking for it. So I was at a place near San Francisco, and this guy was a multimillionaire, and I was at his house, and he had a huge company, which we could get into another time, but at one point. And so I was talking to him, and I eventually got around. I was on his patio. I was asking him, well, how do you go about setting goals? I was kind of inquiring about himself, because he was kind of an interesting guy.
Yeah.
And he goes, now you got to remember, now I'm on his patio, and if you looked one way off to the left, you saw downtown San Francisco, beautiful view. You look to the right, you saw the Golden Gate Bridge. So I mean, he's in a magnificent place. It's been very successful. Interesting guy, and his name is Stuart Emery. And so I had something like, well, tell me about, like, how do you set goals? I'm like, how do you? In my mind, I'm thinking, how do you walk up a path, to something like this? And he goes, I don't believe in all that stuff. I said, yeah, really? You don't believe? Then he looked, I can't believe you've never set goals or anything like that. He just looked right back at me and goes, seems to have worked out so far. And I started to laugh. I was like, okay. But as we went through it, I realized he did it differently.
Yeah.
He went through the process. He just didn't subscribe to a formal process like I'm going to do a SMART goal, strategic, measurable. Like, he didn't do that, but he was doing it in his own way. He had a vision, something that he was going to go after. And in his mind, he was incorporating strategies. What would actually happen, he had mastered the process. He knew if he wanted something, what it took for him to get there. He just didn't go through what we would consider a goal setting process. So, and he was about 80 years old too. So he had time.
He was set. He
had time to figure this out too, by the way. So,
well, I do have a good question here. It's from my friend Alan. He asked this question. He says, what is the relationship or difference between strategies and task?
Task would be something you do on a weekly basis, or daily.
Okay.
Strategy would be that's the plan part of getting there. So like the diet, exercise, and mindset, that's a strategy. For me to get healthy, I have to address, one of my ways that I'm going to get there is addressing diet. Another way that I'm going to get there is addressing mindset. Another way I'm going to address there is activity. So those are my 3 strategies that are going to get me to the desired end, which, in this case is, a bigger goal. So your strategy are ways to get there. And then what I'm going to do this week, I'm going to go do my pantry. I'm going to do my research on what I need. That's your actions, which would be the tasks.
Okay.
So tasks are in the minute. Strategies are, you're trying to get, you're implementing a way, or it's going to be, that's the milestone points. And then the overarching goal is bigger than that.
Okay. So if I'm thinking about that, like how we do that here at church, or I've done it in other places as well, you have often you have goals and action plans. It's like, so you have like a goal and you set the goal, but then how you are going to go about achieving that goal, I guess, are your strategies, and the different parts of those strategies that you have to do there is a task. Am I thinking that correctly?
It just depends on, are we talking about the distal one or are we talking about the proximal one?
Okay.
Because it's goal, strategy, action, and if you went to the distal, it's vision, planning, detail. So it just depends on, are we talking about something that has to be done coming up, right? Then that would, there's, I'm trying to think of something relevant here. Again, I go back to the weight loss thing, just something.
Sure.
Times, if I want to be at a certain weight by a certain day, I've got 3 ways to get there. But mastering that process will be at the 90 days, but I still would have more things to go to be in a healthy lifestyle. There might be other things I need to develop, but the first 3 are going to be those. And, when I get to my 90 days, then I can work on the next part of the bigger goal.
Okay.
Depends on the context that we're talking about. If it's something that's, say 90 days and under, you're more in the goal, strategy, action routine.
Okay. And one more question here. My friend Susan, she asked the question. She said, what's a simple way to distinguish between the distal and the proximal?
I would say the proximal is something that you can accomplish in 30 to, not 30, say from 60, maybe, from 90 days, maybe 120 down.
Okay.
Something, because any further than that, it's going to get too far from you. I don't want a proximal goal to be a year, because that sets me up to abandon the goal. So it kind of depends on, like, I can't complete the semester without going through almost 6 months. So I okay, that goal would be 6 months, but you don't even really need a structure for that. You got to go to class, show up, and just do the work. So that structure is already set up for you. Okay. So the things that you'd be working with individuals with would be the things that necessarily don't have a defined structure, and you definitely wouldn't want those to go beyond 90.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, I think we're set for our questions there. We were going to go back through now.
Yeah, let's just start. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and again, unless somebody wants to dive deep on one, I want to go re-emphasize the process again with my sheets. And by the way, if you're looking for a visual, if you went to the last page of the workbook, you'll see a visual layout of, and I'll show it to you right there, because I didn't make a slide for it, I just realized, but just kind of gives you a visual of what it looks like. You know, distal goal, and hey, I've got a distal goal, so I'm gonna need some proximal goals to get there. So, you know, I might have a big 4-year idea of graduating university. So I'll have maybe some more near goals that are on that. Those will have strategies that help me get there. And then my actions this week will relate to those strategies. And if you don't want to overcomplicate it, you can just say, all right, whatever I do this week is related to this goal. Okay. So like, you don't necessarily need to overcomplicate things, but that's kind of a visual way of looking at it. Okay. All right. So I would start this one by saying, like, so I'll be on page 3 of the handout. What is an important goal for you? And if somebody wants to put one in the chat box, maybe we can work one of those things.
Okay, I see, Eddie, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I see where somebody has said that an important goal for them is this year is to get into shape, you know, is to basically is like losing basically 10 pounds this year.
Okay. So the first thing would be, let's set that up in a different fashion. So the first thing you said was to get into shape.
Yes.
What does that mean? Because the next thing you said was lose 10 pounds, right? That would be one of the strategies. Okay. So the goal is to get in shape. One way to do that is, hey, let me take these 10 pounds off. And if I had those 10 pounds, then what I would say is, okay, what do you want? What do you want out of that? For some people, it's to fit in my old blue suit. You're like, what are you trying to do? And that's how you would state it. So first question is, the first comment was more relevant, which was, you know, to get in shape. So I would query that by saying, well, what do you mean by get in shape? What did you have in mind when you said that? If you thought of a picture yourself in shape, what would be different? See, by doing like that's kind of an awareness questioning, like, well, yeah, I'd be thinner, I'd have better clothes, I'd be more energetic, I'd be, all these different things that will come out. I'd be able to start running again or whatever those things. So now, as we fish through those things, then we can find out maybe other proximal goals that could come out of that. Or it could be just about the 10 pounds. But not likely, because you said get in shape. So then after that, I would say, okay, so how is your mindset around getting in shape? How have you performed in this area in the past? Is this something that you can do easily, or is this something that you would, that you've attempted but hasn't quite worked out? Okay, now we're saying it's okay. So it's about more than just the 10 pounds. So that would bring me to the next thing. Is I would have to change for that to change.
Okay.
That making sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense. Now, I actually have a couple of questions here that relate to all this that I want to bring up. Ashley is saying, she says, I have trouble setting a timeline for my goals, in which case I don't think my goals can be measured, and therefore they are just mere dreams. I just don't know how long my goals will take me. And how does she know that?
Honestly, this is why it's difficult to do goal setting on your own. Okay, because it's like trying to get from some person. There are people that think big. I have a dream. Okay, well, how do you make that into something to do this week? That's a long path. dreams are way out there. Then you got to say, all right, well, in an annual goal, how might I state that? Then, what would be my 90-day? Like, so how do I get to the first step? So if they have dreams, probably need to know a little bit more about that, but be like, okay, to get to the dream, what would be the first thing you need to do? And try to get that to start honing in on a spot.
Okay. So if they shared what the dream was, and then would you just keep breaking it down and breaking it down?
Yeah, so I would call that a vision. So when someone shares a vision, it's a good idea. And matter of fact, if you're out there listening to this, all of this starts with a vision, period. You can't have an accurate goal without knowing where you're trying to get to. You'll just get spit out wherever you get spit out, and you really like to end up where you want to go. So what's the vision behind the statement that what she's saying for Ashley, and write it out, draw a picture of it, what it looks like. We did this one time when I was forming my, Ascentive company. We're going to, be a worldwide company. We're going to be in 100 companies, and we have this kinds of people participating. And every time I drew a describing element, that became a goal of some kind, whether it's immediate or later, whatever. Like the picture will tell you when you really write it out, will guide you on the things that you need to do. Just that now you just need to sort whether, all right, this is a more immediate thing, or this, I need to do, this one applies to something bigger, or I need to do 10 things before I can get to this one. You can make sense of it once you have a well-written vision, and not a vision statement, but a true picture of what it is. And if you want to look at a good example of that, if you went to Whole Foods website, they have something they call the statement of interdependence. And it draws a pretty good picture of what that company is going to be and how it's going to operate. If you ever been to Whole Foods and you start reading and say, well, it looks just like that,
Yeah.
But it declares a lot of things in there, but it gives you a good idea of what goes into creating, the full picture of what you're trying to do, what your life is, or what, you're trying to accomplish. And, certainly God will be in there, like how you want to be with him and those kinds of things. And then from there, you can kind of sort it out. But this is why it's a little bit difficult to do on your own when the bigger picture is in control. It's a lot easier if, hey, if you just keep it to I need to lose 10 pounds. Well, that was not that difficult, but to be meaningful and impactful, it's going to be a little bit more than that.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I have actually another one that relates. Another question has popped in here that relates to that. Is my friend Kristen is asking the question: how do you keep from overcomplicating your goals?
I would probably want to know what she meant by that.
Okay.
Don't get bogged down. Okay, don't get bogged down in the details. So, for example, too much in the details. Is it a goal, is a strategy, an action? What am I doing? Like, am I doing it right? That will overcomplicate it.
Okay.
Even if you got an idea of what you want to do, there's resources for you to find out how to sort it. I'd certainly be a resource for that. But the idea is, to get moving towards something and start again. If you can concentrate on mastering a process to get you to the things you want, so you can do it over and over, those would be your guideposts. But without more details, I don't know if I can answer it more specifically as far as complicated goes. But yeah, don't get bogged down in this is the goal, strategy, wrong, right.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think sometimes that's the way it is. I mean, people ask the questions. They say, "Hey, how do I know if I'm doing this right? Oh, I'm not sure if I'm doing it right. Oh, I just won't do it." And then
Yeah.
and that kind of happens. They kind of float around through, from one thing to the other. But I think sometimes there's that, but then there's sometimes I've seen myself overcomplicate goals by setting way too many.
Yeah.
And seeing everything as a goal, where sometimes they're goals, but they might actually be part of one of our strategies for accomplishing a greater goal.
Yeah. So in context of, if you're in an organization trying to do those things,
Mhm.
And yeah, you got a few more layers to consider there. You're like, all right, this goal, if we do it, where else does that impact? You know,
Mhm.
like what other departments do I need to collaborate, or who do I need assist from? You know, there's a lot of, and by the way, is that bringing us to where we want to go as an organization? You know, there's a lot more considerations there. Kind of the same thing, but just, you know, requires a little more study. Um, and then too many goals. It's okay to have those written out
Mhm.
without like going into the strategies and actions and say, all right, which one, in what order would I do these? Some of them could be simultaneous. And then say, do I have the resource? What resources do I need to do them? And that'll start putting goals in a parking lot. Yeah, well, that's a good one, but it's got to wait. I don't have the resources to pull it off.
Hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. Kristen says thank you on there, so apparently that helped with that as well. Um, one of the things that has come through here is I've seen somebody says, "Well, I have a goal of writing a book," and I've actually talked with lots of people over the years, and that's their goal.
Yeah.
And so, how would you work them through like the document that you have here, or the things that you've taught us so far?
Oh, okay. So I think one of the things would be, what's your reason for writing it? Like,
Uh,
what, you know,
yeah,
what impact are you
that's a
trying?
great question. Many people like to have written, but but the actual process of writing, is often not what people like to do. But that's a great question.
Yeah. Like, what do you envision? Then what impacts are you wanting to have with it?
Mhm.
You know, and then you can kind of start working around. Like, it's always about asking the question. They want to know about writing the book, and that's at a certain level. I like to ask questions that are level to up. Like, okay, so, you know, explain to me, or talk to me about, what's important about writing this book.
Hmm.
But sometimes it's just an idea,
Mhm.
and okay, so how much on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to doing this? Not really.
Yeah.
You know, okay, we just saved a whole lot of time. You know,
Well,
pay
I
at the,
mean, I think. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
said pay at the door.
Well, I think some of the questions you have here too, where you talked about how is it meaningful, does it honor God, and you're really talking about, if the goal to write a book, or is the goal to communicate what you're trying to communicate by writing the book.
That's the big thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
if I have something I believe important to say or communicate,
Okay.
and I am willing to sacrifice, suffer a little bit to get there, stretch myself, and and you know walk through that process of, okay, commitment and who you're trying to impact and what are you trying to say to them and all those kinds of things. And if they continue to say they want to, well then okay, we can start making plans to write it. But the last thing you want to do is start planning to do something that you weren't committed to begin with.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that is a lot around why goals get abandoned in the beginning anyway.
Mhm.
Is, yeah, it was a good idea. It's something I should do. So if you catch yourself saying should, then
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
not a good idea. Yeah. It's something I should do. Then before you even get started, work through the process of how impactful and meaningful is for you, and what's it going to do for your life, and maybe just something. Yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not one that you need to invest a lot of time in.
Okay. Now we're getting close here. So if people have questions, they need to go ahead and submit them. But we have one here that's an important question from my friend Alan again. It says, my challenge has been developing realistic goals versus faith goals.
Mhm.
What are some ways to find that balance?
It's toughy because I've had people sit down and say, "God told me to do this," and
Yeah.
that's toughy for me because I'm not arguing against him. I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, someone's sitting there saying, "I want to increase my business by double or triple this year." as an example. Well, what's the most you've ever increased it? 2%. Okay. Well, all right. I don't know which guide you're listening to, but it's like that's not resonating for me. So the process is the same though. Walk them through and find out what's really realistic. And a lot of it sometimes comes when somebody else is setting the goal for you. Okay. So in companies, for example, if say we have a goal, we have to have this much sales. That's a typical one. And it's a goal that is way over anything. And so it's based on a false need. Hey, we need money. Okay. Well, raising the goal is not going to do it. So that's a kind of a conflict that maybe the individual can't really do too much about because the goal is set in stone. So the only thing that you can do at that point is to create strategies to get as far towards that goal as you can, and you may get there. Sometimes, it depends upon if it's a stretch or just a complete nuclear bomb. But, so that's just it. So realistic goals would be an examination of, if you've got control, what's the time and energy and resources needed to get to it? What's been my performance in these areas in the past, and what do I need to change to make that different?
Mm-hmm.
How do I need to resonate differently on whoever, whatever that, if you're trying to build groups or do other things, what marketing strategies or what, attempting strategies do I have to do? And if it's going to require a good budget for that, and I don't have the resources, I'm starting to now define a ways to know if my goal is realistic or not.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. I'm looking here. I think we are at our time.
Yeah, I was thinking that was going to happen to us because I'm telling you, the setup and the strategies are the most important parts of it.
Yeah. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for spending this time with us, for being an example to us. If people have questions for that, have got the handout, I see you've put your email on there that they can contact. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, and so you can do that, or they can ask questions to us at grow@celebrationchurch.org, and we'll try to find some answers for people. That's grow@celebrationchurch.org. We've been talking here today with Eddie Esposito and talking about goal setting. And Eddie, I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to trying to implement this as we go through the rest of Transform. This will help people to look, because we're going to be looking at goals for each of the other areas. And so this will really help them. And some people will be watching this later, even as we move through the different topics. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, I was just looking at the upcoming topics up on your board. That's why I was looking. It's like a lot of these will apply directly to this because they're either, things that'll support you or things to focus towards. So these be some really good topics coming in the next weeks.
Well, yeah, thank you, Eddie. Yes, we'll be meeting. If you have this Zoom link, we'll be using this same Zoom link for the rest of the seminars. Next week, we have our special guest for improving our spiritual health is Dr. Kathy Frady. I know her pretty well. Anyway, we're looking forward to that as well. God bless you all. See you all this weekend in our worship service. God bless you. Bye-bye.